Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. We are here today to tell you what news you should tune into. Is it essential? Is it important? Is it optional? We will let you know. We've got several pieces to go through. We've got some interesting case studies. We've got OpenAI having a new scale to let us know if they are getting close to AGI or not. We've got Claude. We talked about one Claude upgrade yesterday. We'll talk about a few more today and much more. We've got a lot, so I'm going to jump right into it. Let's get started.
Thanks, David. So the first one that we have for today comes from Ensono, and it talks about how Ensono is using AWS to move GenAI from proof of concept to production for its client.
All right, Adam, give us a little summary if you could, and then let us know what you think.
Yeah, so I I actually rated this as optional. There's a couple of use cases in there. There are examples of ways they're using AWS. It seemed like it was half sort of machine learning AI and half generative AI, more on the future looking side. It didn't get very deep into how they were using it for these use cases. It actually talks about Insono at the top and then another company, Brainbox, at the bottom. And it just seemed like it was, yeah, kind of half machine learning and half Gen AI, and also probably less than half stuff they've already done, and the other half is more talking about sort of future plans. So it didn't seem like there was enough to it to really warrant, especially being specifically within just Amazon. I was hoping to get a little more insight into how they're using Amazon's platform, and there just wasn't enough there for me.
All right. So one optional. Anybody feel differently?
This is use cases, right? So we talked about AWS and their new features that they've just introduced yesterday and gave it as important. I'm not surprised that there are use cases, but these are moving into production and actually good use cases. So for the back pocket, I'm not sure whether it's lower or upper, but I think we should put it as important. People need to know that this is happening and it is moving into production, however slowly, but it is. So I would suggest we do important on this one.
All right. Who's going to break the tie?
I was leaning toward important as well. I mean, I think it's important, and it's important for two reasons. One is capabilities. The other is the danger of this thing that, people are starting to give away their intelligence layer and their cognitive layer to these companies, and it's very easy to get commoditized. It's one thing to give away transactions, another thing to give away your data and your inferencing and so forth. I mean, when you get into WINS work, words, images, numbers, and sounds, how you do it is your special sauce, and a lot of times how you make money. And these people are they're letting the fox in the hen house. So I think on both sides, both what you can do and get wary.
Can you explain that a little bit more? Like, what do you mean in this case?
Yeah, sure. Like, let's say you're in a law firm or something, or I'm trying to remember what are some of the examples in this.
Well, I mean, this one specifically, you're saying they're giving away intelligence.
Yeah, well, ServiceNow. Like, okay, how I do, let's say I have ServiceNow helping me, manage my tickets inside an organization for software. Okay, that's a lot of times that responsiveness and the quality of that and the quality of your service organization is critical. And and how you do it, and how you skill people, their ability to put somebody else into your business, when you do that, or to give a competitor, a leg up to, because a lot of the expense of certain kinds of enterprise software has to do with how you service it. Let's say you've got software in the factory, for example. You really want to give ServiceNow the ability to resell that stuff across different areas? I don't think so. And even if they train on your data and you have the ability to hold on to your data and the weights and so forth, how you approach the problem, what the expertise is, will leak. And then we know if you give it to large services, these get acquired by the big guys. The big guys, we have ample evidence that the Googles and the Microsofts of the world use their market power when they feel like it, and they are pretty unconstrained by regulation. So, I think it's something to be wary of.
Yep.
All right. Well, we've got 2 votes for important, so we will go important. What's next here, Ankaj?
The next one comes from IBM, and this one talks about how you can use an IBM tool to modernize your tech stack.
All right, Amanda, did this impress you?
Yeah, so this one's optional, and basically it's going through Watson X and some of the features, but the key to this is it literally says it aims later this year to be, quote, generally available. So with that being said, for me, it's totally optional.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's for converting old applications into new ones, and it it's it's great that they're approaching it as the whole process. Take a particular piece of code, like look at it, evaluate it. Is it in the top priority? What does need to get done? Then work at it, and then put it into production. So the whole process. But it's on all to Amanda's point. It's only Java. It's it will be available later in the year, but it's great that this is happening. Optional, but it's good. It's a move in the right direction for the debt type of software.
Yeah, I voted optional for this particular article, but I'll tell you, when I look at the maps of where investment is, this is the biggest area that I think is underinvested. Refactoring old code, it's boring. Nobody wants to do it. There's a ton of money in it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I'm surprised there's not more venture investing in it, to tell you the truth, because the code base of so much of the world is so old and crappy. And, I just think it's a gold mine. This
Yeah.
particular article is optional.
The COBOL programmers are out there still. So yeah, absolutely. But it's only for really large companies.
I think they're about to retire.
And they're retiring, yes.
No, I'll tell you, this is that. If I were going to invest in this area, personally, I would get a bunch of old parts that understand the stuff and some young talent, put a lot of money behind it, and figure out which verticals I'm going to go refactor.
Yeah, true.
All right. We'll go for optional. Maybe when we see it emerge later this year, we'll mark it important or essential, it sounds like. Okay, what do we have next, Ankash?
Okay, the next one comes from Google, and it talks about how Google is using Gemini's large context length to make its robots smarter.
All right, Luda, I like to assign you the robots because you get excited about them. What do you think about this?
I do. They're getting smarter and smarter. The article is optional. I think Google is lagging in terms of the robot smartness and abilities, but it's a step in the right direction. I particularly like the bow on the robot. This was cool, but optional.
All right. Anybody think anything differently? And Luda, I mean, maybe give us a little more detail.
Oh, okay. Yes. So the robot, and this is the video, can look around and through the lens and kind of scan the environment and go to where and get questions like, where can I charge this phone and get you to the outlet? Or where can I write, right? Or brainstorm, I could take you to the whiteboard. And so this is a visual environment, which is very important. But other robots have done this already. So this is a catch-up.
This robot reminded me of the robot that roams around Stop and Shop, which is a big grocery chain, and it's been around for a while. It's gigantic, and it kind of like follows you around the store. It feels a little bit creepy and imposing, and I never see anybody actually interact with the thing, but it kind of looks like this one. All right, anybody else have a different take?
No, I think this whole area is so important, though, about helping robots plan for novel environments. And it starts with video and then goes to that. The only pause I have is I had a chance to talk to Rodney Brooks at a conference where I was presenting, and Rodney, is a guy who did iRobot very early on. And I said, Rodney, don't these LLMs help robots, deal with novel environments better? And he said no, which I didn't have time to really drill on him. But other than that, I mean, whatever.
Interesting.
All
The
right.
only thing I would say to just one thing here is the 90% success rate. I know if it's saving lives, that doesn't sound great, but I found that interesting because sometimes when I'm literally using LLMs, maybe I have a 50% success rate, depend on what I'm putting in there. So I just wanted to call that out as well. I don't think for something like this that they're kind of working through, and 90% is horrible on that. So that's the only other thing I wanted to point out.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool when you think that it's basically taking its air quote memory of what it's seen and how it's mapped the space and inferring and helping people. Like, I'm sure it was big softball things like, hey, I'm thirsty. Is there somewhere I can get a drink? And it's finding the water. I mean, like the 500 tasks, but still, I agree. 90% from unstructured, just allowing it to just map the environment and figure out how to help people is an impressive start.
All right. Impressive start, but we will go optional, I guess, until they get a little bit more advanced. All right. What do we have here next?
Okay, the next one talks about how doctors are using AI in their battle with insurers.
All right. Adam, I believe this is
I
you.
was on the fence at first, probably between optional and important for this. As I was reading it, I thought it was pretty cool. It's probably I landed on important, and I'll explain why. It's probably one of those lower back pocket. It's a really great example of a use case. But most importantly, which really stood out to me is so basically there's just a mountain of paperwork that doctors have to fill out to get insurance companies to approve certain plans and programs and those sorts of things. And the thing that really hit home for me is they're saying that they got 90% of his requests for coverage got approved when he started using the LLM, and it took him from hours to minutes. Whereas in the past, he said he had about a 10% success rate. So it's not just all the time saving, but it's actually making them much more effective at combating sort of the mountain of paperwork that insurers throw in front of getting these claims approved. So I thought for that reason it was worth sort of perking up and tucking it away in the lower back pocket.
All right. John, I'm curious what you thought on this one. I'm going to make an argument for essential when I get going, and I was kind of surprised in the spreadsheet that you did not go to essential. So I want to
support essential. I think look, this is where policy's and going, right, and government's going. It's going to be robots versus robots with humans using them, right? And it's going to happen really fast in areas like this where there's big money at stake. I mean, you think about the numbers in here. It's 12 hours a week some doctors spend doing this stuff. I mean, that's nuts. The AMA, has shown that the American Medical Association has shown that, doctors spend a majority of their time doing things like this, administration and this kind of stuff. And, I think it's going to heat up. This is I could see essential, and this is just, just think of every place where there's a contention, a service, something that didn't deliver, a complaint. I mean, it's just going to be, it's going to be the battle of the robots. It's going to be amazing.
I got dramatic on this one, I know, in our Slack channel, and I was like, I think that this is like the article of the month. To me, this is like the home run because you've got a use case. It's working with great results. It's a great story, right? We're empowering the patient by getting them the treatment they need. We're empowering the doctor by giving them more time. It's solving a huge problem potentially in society. I mean, the shortage of doctors and nurses is real, and I'm sure everybody experiences that right now as they're trying to get healthcare. And it shows a tip of the future, like John said, of computer and computer, because on the healthcare side, they're using computers too, right, to assess whether they should allow the prior authorization of some type of treatment. So you've got the robots kind of competing. And then you could see how this could eventually just become this really quick automated thing, right? Of like, okay, the parameters are known on the doctor side, they're known on the insurance side, and like, boom, it just happens. To me, I thought this was an essential article, and I'm glad John supports me because
David, as you're both talking, I'm getting more convinced. Probably, I think it's worth highlighting specifically. They're talking about this Doximity GPT, and I wanted to emphasize is that it's HIPAA compliant, right? And so this is really a use case where they've done the hard yards of playing the regulatory game to get this thing on board in a way that enables it to actually have the patient's medical records, have the insurer's coverage requirements, to put all that important, proprietary private information into a system, just shows what kind of power it can then have in terms of really enabling them.
Yeah, and really good data in this space is hard to find. I'm actually working with a startup right now that aggregates healthcare data from across the US. And one of their value props is, that they're getting it from even like small rural hospitals and such, right? Because, when you try to get this data, a lot of it's definitely biased to urban centers, and therefore whatever population is there. Of course, it's usually more diverse, but still doesn't reach every type of patient population. But all right, we're going essential on this one. Oh, Luda, you might be saying something, but you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess we've created a system that this is a Band-Aid. So essentially, there's a denial, there's a letter to remove the denial or reverse it, then there is a rebuttal, and then it can be an endless process where people are sitting in the wheelchair because they don't get a prosthetic leg and whatnot. So this is, it's essential because we've created a system that we need to now deal with. It would be much better if the AI was pointed at what are the real treatments that the doctor can select out of that would be approved immediately, right? So it's just, the system is terrible. And yeah, I understand why you're saying essential in the current system, but it's nuts. It should be optional, really.
I'm sure everybody agrees with you. In the absence of the overhaul of our crumbling health system, this is probably the best we're going to get for the moment. But I like your impassioned plea on that because I totally agree.
Yeah, right. We're putting it as important, but pointing to the fact that AI should be pointed at a different space, really. But anyway.
All right. I hear you, Luda. We will go essential on this one. We've got, 3 or 4 more articles here we'll get into. Akash.
David. So the next one is a deep dive from Kevin Zhang on AI Inflence startup.
All right, Luda, what do you got on this one?
I rate it as important. It's a VC. It's an article that talks about the landscape of various tools and how it is likely to go forward, specifically on the tools that are sitting on top of LLMs and providing all of the wiring to actually use LLM to put it into production. And there is a discussion about these tools being commoditized and how the money is flowing and the valuations and the like. So this is a good article, great overview. The article that is mentioned as the prior article, doing that stack and explaining the pieces and how they are tied together, and what's this author's view on where the potential currently is. Both are important in my view.
Yeah, I think we might have reviewed that article previously, no? Maybe it was when you were out. I'll have to go back and check because I felt like I recognized.
Okay. If we did it is...
I don't know. Akash might know. Did we do that one, Akash?
No, David, don't remember it.
I'm thinking of a different one, I think, that had similar charts and such. All right, so we have one important. Anybody feel differently?
No, it's important though. I think an AI leader's got to have a point of view on, what's the architecture of the solutions. I know it's very dynamic and everything takes work, but too bad, that's what they pay for. And, understand that stuff. And then have at least some idea where they think the power is going to be and how this thing's going to settle out. They're going to have to pay attention. It's not clear right now, but I think I think the AI leaders got to have an opinion.
So, David, I would include the article from the first sentence as an overview. That's sort of almost like essential to read because it puts all the pieces together of essentially the AI stack from the VC perspective, granted, and where the opportunities are, but still gives you an overview. And this one is focusing on the AI as a service, right, as they call AI inference startups, also important for the delivery of AI applications.
All right, we will go important. We've got two more up next. Claude.
Yes. Yesterday we discussed some new uh, functionalities by Claude, but we missed the sharing and remixing of artifact.
Yeah, very short piece here, just letting folks know some of their upgrades, which look really good. Ever since they hired that product manager, or new head of product, although I'm sure some of these things were in the works already before he got there, but it just seems like things are just streaming out since he got there. I forget what his name is. I think he was from Instagram. John, what do you think about this one? You're on mute.
Yeah, I think I had it as optional. I saw Adam had it as important. Be curious why. I mean, I think, to make it easier for this, publishing and sharing and so forth, and the ability to take artifacts and work with them on an ongoing basis. I think anything that gets you to modularity and chunking of capability, especially in an emerging market like this, is really important. And Claude's very capable. So, but I think we covered a bunch on the artifact part, and I had it as optional because of that.
Adam.
Yeah, look, this was actually the thing that really excited me when I suggested we get it on the news yesterday, and this wasn't covered. But I was surprised to see that the news about helping write better prompts was rated as important yesterday. And I thought if that was important, this certainly should be at a minimum. Probably the news in itself, I feel it's important because what they're now doing is it's basically the equivalent of what GitHub does in terms of people being able to fork people's code and continue to collaboratively in a decentralized manner expand and develop what other people are doing, but it's doing it in a format that's so easily consumable by a much broader audience, right? You're literally playing around with this LLM and you can go see the toys that other people have made and just take them and break them and make new toys out of them. And I think we're going to just see this wave of innovation that's going to expand so quickly. And the fact that these are posts saying, hey, when are they going to do this new idea? And 2 weeks later, they've already put this out as a feature. The pace with which they're innovating, the way that they're offering new products to market, I think more broadly, it needs to be flagged that Anthropic and what they're doing with Claude 3.5 here. And mind you, this is the best LLM out there right now in performance, and it's not their Opus model. This is their middle tier model, right? I think it's worth waving another flag and saying you need to be paying attention to what's happening over there in Anthropic.
Yeah, I'm with Adam. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Just a quick question. We just may not know this yet, but if I'm somebody and I have done a little development, posted my artifact, if someone takes it and maybe improves it and publishes back, is there a clear way for them to kind of tag that initial person that put it up? You know what I mean? So like,
I don't know if there's some sort of attribution or you can trace the history of it. I haven't played around with it yet, but I see how that.
This could be a way, right? Like for someone like me, not great at coding and such, like I might get something started and it's kind of cool and other people think it's cool, so they improve upon it for me and then I get it back and I can have it. So and that would be super valuable, right? And really get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I don't think so. GitHub doesn't do unless it's just a repository of stuff.
Yeah,
I agree with Adam that this is easy to use and people will start using it. I'm assuming that it is really team cooperation and people will tell each other what they're doing and develop a new tool. So it's for developing of faster products. Or better products. It's not necessarily a broader network, but it can be, right? So attribution system needs to be somewhere. Yeah. but I
Well,
don't think it's there yet.
you can attach licenses in GitHub if you want. So I mean the which I think will help you some there. But yeah, interesting. You know, I after hearing the way you're looking at the problem, you know, Adam, Luna, and so forth, I could even support an essential. I mean, you think about the importance of end user, you know, development in this whole domain. You know what I mean? And to your point, Adam, this is the best model, and they're quickly supporting that and so forth. I mean, you're going to see a lot of functionality in organizations where the rebels inside are building stuff. Right?
Yeah, that's
So-
true. And the leader should know about it. Maybe, go essential.
All right.
The big E.
Do it. I mean, geez, it's 5 lines. We can assign some people 5 lines to look at, and I think our thoughts are more important on this one than actually just looking at the products. So we will share those in our newsletter. As always, a little plug to sign up for that if you haven't already. All right, I think we're on to the last one.
Yes, David. So the last one comes from OpenAI. So OpenAI internally has developed a tracking system to measure their progress towards human level AI or AGI. And this image shows the stages here.
Yes, and spoiler alert, they think they're only at stage 1. After all of this stomping around by Sam Altman that were, you know, on the edge of something amazing. Last year, remember when the whole board thing happened, there was thoughts that they had seen a glimpse of something that was like super powerful, yet now they're like, oh, sorry, we're just at stage 1. Amanda, what did you think about this?
Yeah, I think this is totally optional, and I still am not quite clear on why they're so hell bent on this. I don't get it, but yeah, to me this is completely optional. They're reasoners, and they're saying that they're basically on par with a doctorate level education. I mean, what does that even mean for them? I don't know. That could be anything. So this is totally optional for me.
Well, I'll say there's 2 reasons why I think they're doing this, right? Number one is, you know, it was their mission. It is their mission to achieve AGI. But more importantly, if you remember, Microsoft, once the OpenAI gets to what they call AGI, which previously had no real definition around it, Microsoft can no longer profit from them. So once they get to level 5 here, I guess, that will kick in, which also makes me surprised that they made a 5-level system and put themselves at 1. You would think they might make it, you know, 2 levels, 3 levels, and try to get themselves there faster. But John, what were you gonna come in with?
I was going to say I was between optional and important. I think the only reason I'd say important is because in many ways they're the industry leader, and it's important, I think, for people to have awareness of this scale. People are going to start talking about level 2 and level 3, and the AI leader needs to know what that means. And people are probably going to adopt this, if nothing else, because OpenAI is using it and they have so much influence over the space. Otherwise, I thought it was probably optional. It's pretty arbitrary. And to your point, David, I think some of their motivations may be transparent.
I would go very optional here. And here's the reason. If you think through what they are saying, level 1 to level 5, in the latter levels, they're saying invention in level 4, but they have no clue how they're going to get it. So it's the building blocks that they have now stacked into the things or progression that appears to be progressive, but not, because level 4 is the critical. How do you get into invention? And we don't know how our brain does it. Synapses fire and you go above. And I've spent so much time with neuroscientists trying to understand it when I was writing my book. We don't know. So even we don't have a model of how this works. If we did, maybe you can replicate it, but we don't. So level 4 is completely like a dream. When they figure out how they're gonna get there, then some of this might make sense. So option.
Look, I'm totally optional for me. I don't want to support this baloney that, you know, Sam Altman is the P.T. Barnum of AI, right? I mean, P.T. Barnum was before the age of 20 was sued 3 times for libel. Right? I mean, you know, the first of all, I didn't understand that about the contract. That's interesting because if I were an enterprising lawyer, I could argue that AI is doing level 5 now by this definition, right? It's just baloney. So, and I agree with you, Luda. Level 4 is so ambiguous and crazy. This has no dimension. It calls itself levels. These are totally different things. You know, it doesn't make any sense. And I hear you that, you know, AI leaders are going to be asked to do it. I mean, I would rather not put our stamp of, you know, hey, other than put it out there and say, look, this is total bullshit. Don't pay attention to it. If we do that, I'm okay.
All right. I think we'll say it's total bullshit and we'll make it optional. All right.
Or you can put it essential and say, this is total bullshit. Do not believe it.
All right. Ankaj, where did we end up for the day here? We did have at least one essential. I think 2. Let's see.
Yeah, I think we had 2.
Oh, that's right. 2 essentials: the Claude improvements, the what was the name of the tool for the Doximity? I can't keep that in my head. I keep wanting to say DocuSign because that was in the AWS article.
Yeah, that was one of the use cases.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of which, the article AWS got important. The commentary about the AI inference startups also got important. Everything else is optional. We will be off for the weekend, of course. We will see you on Monday with the next edition. Please do sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already, and check us out on YouTube. We've been posting some little shorts, picking John's brain on various topics that you could visit. Our learning labs are there in addition to all the episodes of this show. If you've missed any and want to take a look, have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you Monday.
Bye now.
Happy Friday.